Welcome to my blurred opinion, and welcome to episode 181. Let's get into it. Alright, everybody, we are back here again. Another guest. I guess I tell everybody Podmatch is such a great place, so I don't want to keep repeating myself, but always find so many damn good guests there, and
Through Podmatch?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been great for me too. Like what they charge for the value I've gotten. I mean, man, I would have never been able to like have connected and found this many good podcasts. Like it's such a great thing, and I love the fact that the founder, he just like when I signed up, he actually like personally wrote a message to me like, hey, let me know if you need anything. I think it's like Alex San Filipino or something.
Alex
Yeah,
something.
he just strikes me as a really good person that actually is passionate and cares about his platform, and like obviously he's well connected, but he actually strikes me as like a very good ideal leader for running a platform like this. It was very cool to me that he actually sent a personal note to like me, and I'm sure he does for every person that joins him. So I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, for sure. But so that's where we found our next guest. Before we get into it, I just wanted to say something. Like there's a guest that's coming up. I'm gonna have on. And she was having me look for. She has like an autoimmune disorder, and she wanted me to find some guests that I've interviewed to kind of help her, whatever with her issues, and just make her feel comfortable with the fact that there are other people out there struggling with something similar. And so
Mm-hmm.
I had to like go through the whole 170 episodes of podcasts to try to figure out, which ones were what, because I don't remember all of them like that. And it was
Yeah.
nice to go through not every episode, but it was nice to kind of look through the descriptions and all that and see how many different types of people add on and how many different stories and
Mm.
all the things I never ever like imagined interviewing. And when I first started this was all about just getting my story out there, talking about mental health and having a disability and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
five other things maybe. But and it just kind of it's nice to just kind of sit back and look at all that has happened from all this and so on. But so yeah, our next guest, like I think I say this so many times every episode. Like my
Mm-hmm.
biggest appreciation for the show is just watching people do what I've always wanted to do and I am doing, is just taking
Mm-hmm.
their pain and turning it into something positive.
Yeah.
I just find that so powerful and just such an amazing thing because so many people do it, and I try to highlight that as much as I can because it's not highlighted enough when you look around at social media
Oh,
and the world.
for sure. For sure, and that's exactly. I love to talk on that. Taking, turning that negativity, channeling that into positive energy and positive things.
For sure.
Happy to talk about that. We'll definitely bring that up.
Yeah, so because he and I are just gonna ramble and we're gonna talk. So I just wanted to just introduce our next guest because I think he reached out to
Yeah.
me and
Okay.
we're starting to get to know each other. I'm sure we'll become more friendly over the the days and so on. But why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little about yourself.
Absolutely. So you want me to start now?
Yeah, go ahead, buddy. Go ahead.
Hey, Tim. Awesome to be here. Really appreciate it, and really excited to talk with you. So, I am a public speaker, published author, sales professional. I am a co-founder of a parenting newsletter, All Star Parents, and I'm also a three-time axe throwing champion. Uh, and growing up, uh, so I know one of the things you talk about in your podcast, right, is adversity and overcoming that. And for me, it's different for each person, but oftentimes we can find a lot of overlap in that. And so for me, I grew up and I just felt really trapped. I later got diagnosed as a young adult with bipolar type 1 and a major depressive disorder, and struggled with anxiety a lot as well. Um, so I didn't have anywhere to go. I just had all this pain and I just kept it bottled up inside of me, and I didn't have any place or way to go. So again, that feeling of being trapped, and that can be really, really hard as a kid. You have no voice. You just, you just have to keep going, and that can be a really tough thing. So one of the things I kind of just had to learn on my own is to build up the resilience. But at the time, I didn't have an outlet. There was no valve, and it's important we have a valve to release these pains that we all encounter. And so for me, I turned to things that to help me get through them at the time, which I'm not proud of, but I have overcome, for a while now. But drinking, drugs, listening to really violent music, all things that help me cope to not just numb. I was basically numbing myself for a very long time,
Yeah.
and I know the impact of that because I look back and right society tells us no, grow up, knock it off, get over it. The thing is, that kid that we all left behind never leaves us. It comes with us. That inner child is with us. It doesn't go away from our childhood. Yes, we become adults. Yes, we mature and we grow, but that inner child, it never goes away.
Yeah.
And if you think it does, it's ignorant and naive because it doesn't go away. And David Goggins, he wrote "Can't Hurt Me." He talks about that. Another great book I read by Halisa Haisha, Soul Blazing, also talks about the inner child and what happens when we become adults. We can either take those. So what happens is if we don't heal from these things, they manifest in the form of a mask, right? And Lisa, in her book Soul Blazing, talks about I believe it's 7 different types of masks, like the Joker, the Seducer, the Overthinker, the Judge, just to name a few. And that was really helpful because when I read it, it just clicked, and I'm like, oh yeah, I've done that before. I've put on this face before. I recognize this in one of my friends. So once we have self-awareness, we can get on a path to healing. And so, yes, these things happened and terrible things happened, but that doesn't have to be we don't have to accept that as our fate in life, right? We can heal, we can rewire, and it's important we hold on to hope in the midst of feeling hopeless,
Yeah.
like so many of us do, right? It can be such a painful thing.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, one of the things, like going back to the inner child part of it. So, something I kind of learned more recently about myself is that, like, I said that I've always struggled with the two parts of me as an adult now. Because there's still this part where I go back to being that kid who was so innocent and naive and thinking everyone was kind and so on and so on. And then you get bullied and people throw shit at you and call you all kind of names and get molested, and all these things happened to me. And then the older part starts to be the protector and looks at it and just is now angry and bitter at the world because I don't want to see that happen to anyone else. And I almost become, but it turned into something positive eventually where I started to try to be a protector for other people, because it's like I didn't want anyone to go through what the younger me went through, because I was such an innocent kid. I just wanted to play with my Hot Wheel cars and Ninja Turtles, and I just loved life. And then life turned it around and kind of took that from me, and it just really abused me to the point where I eventually just grew hatred and anger, and and to the point where it's like, when I used to say, like, oh, I'm not a people person, I'm an animal person, which is still somewhat the case. I love animals more than anything, but like people, I always had a love-hate relationship because so much was done to me. And so, yeah, that inner child thing always it was something I started to really go back to and try to figure out, like, you try to go back to the source of the crime, like where did this all go wrong, where did this all start. And even though I didn't play a huge part in why, I mean, you can't just say, like, oh, I was molested, it was my fault, because obviously that's wrong. But you have to try to figure out what the parts you did play, and obviously it came later after that, where I wasn't prepared. Even kind of going back to the beginning part of what you were talking about, it's like sometimes you just don't have the proper tools to deal with these things, and life just kind of has to go on, and you have to develop them. You got to figure out maybe based on experiences, maybe there's certain characteristics that you have within inside you based on your gene pool, your family gives you, or friends or lovers or teachers or whoever you come across, and then you find these tools, and then you know how to use them for the trauma and the pain and all the things you've gone through. So it sucks because I think a lot of people don't want to just sit around and just wait until this stuff happens, but you have to learn, you have to really develop within your life, and learn on the fly and from your mistakes. You can't just assume or hope for everything to go well, because you're probably not going to learn shit from just life going wonderful for you.
100%, Tim. Really resonates, and it's so familiar and relevant, right? And it doesn't help that society puts these expectations on us, right? Like, oh, you need to get over this. Oh, after a year, you need to be done mourning for this person. Like, get over it. It's over. Like, it doesn't help. The stigmatism is something that bothers me a lot, and why I want to speak out about mental health. And I know that you have gone through a lot, as many of us have, right? And so having those tools and doing those things and gaining the experience to overcome them is so critical. And it's so frustrating to me when things happen and then people are like, oh, this person is just crazy. Like, no, this person had a mental health crisis. They didn't get the help they needed, and something terrible happened. And this keeps happening, and it's not going away, and it's getting worse. And part of it, I think, is the stigmatism, right? And like, people talk about, oh, we'll put the guns away. If there's no more guns, there'll be no more violence, and it's just not in touch with reality.
No, not at all.
If you take away guns, people will find another way,
right,
to hurt people. You can't take that away. But what we do need to focus on is getting people the help that they need, to prevent tragedies, because especially in the U.S., like, there's just so many terrible things happening. Mental health is a complete crisis. Like, and it's just hard too, because it reflects in movies too. Like, there's always the antagonist, and what I've learned over time is that, because I also relate when you said that being that angry and bitter kid that was like, there was no justice. So many bad things happened, like, and like there's no justice, and you feel so conflicted, angry and bitter. And at the same time, we know that there is no place in the world for angry and being bitter. I mean, yes, these things happen. Yes, but it's circumstantial, but good always wins over evil. And we know this, and we know when we feel angry or bitter at the world, it's not healthy. It's not going to end well. It never does. Any country that has ever, the evil never wins. It never wins. They can do damage, but good always wins versus evil. And so I think it's so important to recognize that. And when terrible things do happen to us, that we do have a safe space and a safe place to be able to channel that negativity into something positive, to help people find what their purpose is in life, or to help them get over whatever it is they're going through, a mental health crisis, or if they're dealing with depression, oppression, mental illness, or some other hardship. They all deserve patience, kindness, and compassion. That is how we grow. That is how we advance as a species. And I totally hear you when you say you're more of an animal person, right? Because it's like, I've felt so betrayed by people, and I get it, how painful that is. Animals never hurt us. Animals only show love. And so I get it, right? But people, it's like, we want to believe everybody's good, especially as kids, because that's how I felt, and until I got severely bullied, and it felt like nobody, it was happening and nobody cared. And that made me so angry and bitter and distrustful, right? And great psychologist Erik Erikson, he talks about trust versus mistrust, right? As children, when we're children, if we are if we get our needs taken care of, then we have a feeling of trustfulness towards other people. If we are neglected, then we will grow up to be distrustful towards other people. And that doesn't mean it's set in stone, but I feel there is truth to that, and recognizing how important it is that the foundation of our childhood sets the path of how it shapes us as adults when we grow up.
Yeah, that's why like good parenting is so key, which is a lot of
Yeah.
times is lacking in a lot of these people's stories.
Mm.
Whether it's just one parent or the other, or a grandmother or something, that whatever they have left that's keeping them together. But when it comes to, I think it's very key to have both parents because if you're a male, obviously a father's probably a little more important because he's teaching you how to be a guy, but you absolutely need the mother figure there to teach you some of the softer parts of life and to be more emotional and to show your feelings. But, and the same thing with a woman. I think I'm probably a daughter. A mother's probably a little more important, but you still need to know what a guy is and what you should be looking for when if you want to date men, and you should know
Hmm.
the hardships of life as well. But yeah, and I also think like kind of going a little bit back what you were saying, like I think so many people just write. We write people off so easily now. Like
Hmm.
you're either it's the same thing with when we debate anything. It's black and white. There's no gray.
Yep.
You're either a good person, you're a bad person. You're not a good person with some bad tendencies, or you're not a bad person with some good tendencies. Like no one just, you can't be both, which is bullshit. Like it's not like and again, I'm not defending him, but like the reality is, like they said, Hitler was very charitable. Now, of course,
Hmm.
was he charitable to certain people? Of course. Was he still an awful person? Yes. But it didn't mean he didn't do anything good. Just like there's some good people that
Hmm.
are really good. That doesn't mean they didn't hit a girl, or they didn't say something racist once or whatever. Like we all
Hmm.
have a little bit of that. And when you go through trauma and you go through pain, you do have some real anger, and sometimes you tend to react negatively to certain circumstances poorly than you should, more poorly than you should have, because you're so guarded and you're so protected because you don't want to have to go through certain situations. Sometimes you read a situation wrong just based on, like I said, how your history has been, and you don't know how to just deflect and kind of downplay the situation. You just go full force and say, fuck it, I'm just going to blow this bridge up because,
Yep.
someone did this. So now everyone's like this. And it's hard because, and I talked about him before, like I'm a person who is very open to all cultures and all people. I grew up around all different races, but there has been times, once or twice in my life where I had to check myself because I had like a racist thought that would pop to mind. Again, everyone goes through that shit. I don't want to
Yeah.
hear like no one, but like I had a thought where like it made me have to recheck my whole reality and everything I went through because I know that
Hmm.
there's racist people in my family, and I had to check
Yeah.
myself to say, wow, like there are people that genuinely love you that would be disappointed of what you're thinking about saying right now because you're in front of someone who's a shitty person, and they are ignorant for what they are doing in your presence, but it's not because this color of their skin. Yes, maybe they're going on a stereotype or whatever, but that doesn't, define the whole community. But like you're looking at it that way, and it's like you have to learn. Like I said, and I didn't know I even one had that some of those deep down, deep seated feelings that were within my gene pool for one,
Hmm.
and two, I didn't, I just didn't know. I didn't. There was times where I didn't even have those tools to access to even be able to deal with it. Now, when that did happen, I was able to access the tools because I was deep into life, and a lot had happened, and I had so many close people in my life that were that color. But
Hmm.
it's just there's so much that you really need, and I love having these conversations with
Yeah.
all types of people because it's so fucking important. But like there's so much surface shit that like no one wants to, everyone wants to talk about it like on a surface level. No one wants to really get deep into it because they're afraid. I have the assumption that like a lot of people, one of the reasons why people really avoid people with disabilities or homelessness, people who are going through homelessness, is because we're a huge reminder of how fucked up life can be. That doesn't mean
Yep.
life is over, but it's like you understand you are two bad payments, in the bank, or you're not paying your rent or whatever, and if you don't have any friends or family, you're homeless. or you get hit by a
Right.
car, you're disabled,
Right.
and like we gotta, sometimes you just gotta let the boogeyman through and just show like this is okay. Sometimes there's shit that's going on, and
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not saying don't be scared of everything. There's some really crazy shit going on right now, and there's some darkness,
Yep.
but like that's why like
Hmm.
we are so important, you and I, and so many others that are
Yeah.
trying to purify some of this crap. It seems like half the world is on fire right now, literally on fire,
Yeah.
and it's
Oh yeah.
so depressing. And I'm trying to put out good content and I'm trying to put out realistic content, not just like
Hmm.
overly
Hmm.
positive and happy content, but like content that's actually going to help people, because I know how sad life can get. I know how dark life can get. And that's
Yeah.
why I like to start from the beginning of like your story of dealing with trauma. And then we get to where
Hmm.
you are now and where you want to go, because obviously I don't want to end on a dark note like, oh no, like this guest killed themselves, because that would be awful. But I mean,
Right.
it's
Right.
good to start from where you came from. And like I said, it's taking your pain and turning it into something positive.
I like what you said, Tim, about the parents, and it's very interesting because I have a daughter, and me and her mom just are like, it was always toxic. It was terrible. I don't know, I was young at the time. They say love is blinding. I think that was a big part of it. But man, my daughter's a huge blessing, and I agree with you. It's important to have those two things, and I love how real you are. You're one of the more realist podcasters I've spoken with, and I love how like
I appreciate
raw
that.
and honest you are. Yeah, man, because nobody talks about that stuff, right? We just sweep it under a rug like it's not happening, and we're gonna pretend like we don't see what's going on, but it's obvious what is, right? And I think that's so important. And one thing that I would say, because I don't have a great relationship with my family, and you know what? That's okay. I've learned that because there's some things that have bothered me in life, and truthfully, what I came to a realization more recently is like, look, we don't have to have the same views. We don't have to agree politically, and that's okay. I don't have to let that make me feel angry towards them or bitter towards them. They're still my family. They love me, and I love them, and that's okay. We'll set our differences aside and just accept that.
Yeah.
um, things like what you described. I mean, there was a civil war. This is like deeply embedded for many years of and us evolving as a species, and it's complicated. It's really complicated,
Yeah.
and I think that what you said too about like mental health, it's like that is so heavily needed, and there's just so much stereotype, there's so much bias, and like people's idea, and then it's worse, right? It's adding fuel to the fire, because then people on top of that are like, oh, don't see a shrink. You want somebody to make you feel small, put you in your place. It's like, no. If you were to start a business and you had the choice between a business advisor and nobody, who would you pick? Obviously you would pick a business advisor to guide you to making your business successful. It's the same with a therapist or a doctor. These people are your business advisors for your personal health.
Yeah.
So we got to put that this uh these stereotypes aside, and the stigmatism, and really just like that's so important right now, and I think it's just gonna take time, unfortunately. But yeah, there's just so much horrible stuff, and one thing I did want to say too, Tim, is that so one thing I learned from my mom that I'm grateful to her for, and I'm not close with my family. I'm a black sheep. I'm definitely an outcast. I am very open with my ideas, and a lot of them don't mix with don't mend well with my family. And I don't sugarcoat things either. So, but my mom did teach me to be very empathetic on a very deep level. So when I was in, I think it was high school, I wanted to understand what got them to the point that they became homeless. And I remember the first time I actually spoke to somebody who was homeless, and I sat down with them on the ground and I talked to him. And I was amazed with what I discovered from that experience, which is that he came from a line of very highly successful pianists playing the piano. He had pictures that he showed me in his wallet of people that were in his family. His name was Jacob, and he wasn't a bum. He was a human being that had lost all belief in himself.
Yeah.
I understood. I saw him for how he was, and I also saw the way people looked at him, looked down on him like he was nothing. And I think that that reflects on mankind. And I think an amazing show that really highlighted that, which is such a huge problem in our society, is the show Squid Games. It shows how we view other people. We treat them like they're racehorses, right? Like
Mm.
like they're not human, like they're nothing. I love that show because obviously it was entertaining, but I liked the point it made about how we view other people as being less than us, and how and how awful that is, because every person in this world, that person who was homeless, he wasn't a bum. He was somebody's brother, uncle, or mother. That's what bum literally stands for. Or you could say bums: brother, uncle, mother, sister. That is somebody's. That is part of that person is part of somebody's family, and it's a tragedy that they're in the situation they are. But we shame them. Like they already feel worthless as it is. Why do they have to be put down even more? Like, why is our society like this? It bothers me, and I'm grateful to my mom for giving me that level of empathy, because if I can do something about that, I will try to change. These people deserve dignity, and they deserve to have a chance to live meaningful lives. And to just write them off as like it's their own fault and they have nothing to do with it without knowing that person personally is ignorant, and it's careless. And I think it's a disgrace in humanity. And so my hope is that as a species, we can grow and give the people that need help the most. We can be there for them and help them to get back on track and to live meaningful lives, because they're humans just like us, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know what I'm saying? So it's like all these things you said really brought up a lot of thoughts and feelings for me.
Yeah. I appreciate it. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I saw a woman. I was with my grandma and her friend, and it was 90 something. It was like 97 degrees or some shit. It was so hot outside, and there was this woman had a sign up that saying she couldn't pay her rent, and she has 3 kids. Whatever. My grandma, she's old school. She's born in 1992, or excuse me, 1932, and she made a comment of something that basically encapsulated this woman's life to, she's worthless. She's just trying to take money from people and then drive her Ferrari away type of shit. Like, oh yeah, she's got money in the bank. I'm like, grandma, it's 97 degrees outside. Who the hell is hustling in 97-degree weather unless they need it? Like, and again,
Yeah.
maybe, just maybe she's right. But like, I don't care. Like, and again, I'm not saying if she was doing it, that's right. It's not. But at the same time, like, I don't judge people like that. Like, if she is, then screw her. But
Yeah.
it's I don't like anyone who takes advantage of anyone. But I can't stand, like, I love my grandma, but that's some of the qualities I've had to delete with some of the parts of
Yeah.
my family, because it's like they're just so closed off and closed minded to certain things. And it's like,
Yeah.
and so when you say black sheep, I have a good mother, I have a good grandmother. There's a couple people in the family I do love, but I do believe if I wasn't so and so's son or so and so's grandson, I probably would be, oh, look at that blind fucker over there, because
Yep.
I get certain things from people that it's just like, oh, like, you guys don't understand me. And even my grandmother, my mom, a lot of times I don't think they understand how hard I try to go at this advocacy thing, because I care so much about it, because I realize however long it takes me to get to wherever I got to get to, like, I have to be, and I'm not the only one, but like, I have to be one of the few people that have to be like the sacrificial lamb, so that other visually impaired, other disabled people, other people with trauma don't have to go through the same shit that you and I have to go through. We
Yeah.
don't have to bust our
Yeah.
ass, because it shouldn't be
Exactly.
this hard for, I say it ad nauseum, but it shouldn't be 75% of people with disabilities shouldn't be unemployed. It's bullshit.
Right.
It's
It
bullshit,
is.
because if it was
It
any
is.
other community, if it was black, Asian, women, gay, anything, there would be riots. So,
Yep.
and it's because our community and just the disability community itself is so torn apart, because we're just split up into all these different body parts, and we're defined by a guy in a wheelchair logo. And most of us aren't even in wheelchairs. And there's nothing wrong with being in a wheelchair, but the problem is that doesn't define me, doesn't define a lot of people I know.
That's right.
And it's and then on top of it, like, we just don't stand for each other as people. We always try to find a way so we're not the bottom of the barrel. Like, okay, I mean, I've seen people who are visually impaired make fun of blind people just because
Yep.
they're a couple percentages above them. And
Hmm.
you see that in every aspect of life, and it's so, some of it can be very covert, but some of it is very, obvious and right in your face, and it's so sucky.
and,
um
and, it, and it
yeah.
makes it so hard to recognize your own worth when that happens, and the insensitivity of others giving you a label and defining who you are instead of, but you know that you have to define yourself and be proud of who you are, and that you aren't just a label of a guy in a wheelchair. That is bullshit.
Yeah.
And we both know that, and it's infuriating, right? Because
Yeah.
you are such a capable person. So many people with disabilities have so much potential, and I know because I've met people in one of my speaking communities. Um, there's a guy, and he has cerebral palsy,
Hmm.
and he's a phenomenal speaker. And there's just this radiating energy of positivity from him, and he is just such an inspiration for that. And I was shocked when he told me that people made it really hard. They shot him down because he had that condition, and they didn't think he could speak, or they didn't want him to speak, or they didn't want to cover for his expenses, because he is in a wheelchair, and he doesn't have enough oxygen to his legs to be able to walk without a walker, and he has to be in a wheelchair. But he didn't let that stop him, and I think it's so important we bring each other up rather than trying to knock each other's towers down,
Yeah.
right? That's what I hope to see more of in the world, and we need more leaders like that, right? Because it's what bothers me the most, Tim, is that when we look at our political leaders in the world, they're supposed to be the highest and best example of what a good citizen is, and oftentimes they're the worst. They have absolute power, and they display how it corrupts absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's like, why can't these people? They're supposed to be the 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 the, the poster child of what a good civil citizen is supposed to be, but they don't play that way. They don't exemplify that at all. They put other people down. They take shots. It's just like everything we were taught as kids, to be respectful and do and this and that, and to hold yourself to a higher standard, that doesn't apply to them. So it's very confusing, I think, when kids watch elections and debates, how they're constantly throwing insults at each other, and they're being like, they look to their teachers and they're like, wait, you told us people are supposed to we're supposed to respect each other and be respectful towards one another, and give space to talk and express opinions, but they're not doing that. So why should I do that? It's very conflicting, and it's just interesting. I've noticed that, and I,
Yeah.
I really think that we need better leaders to really stand out and stand up, and really figure out ways to empower one another.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, and a lot of people who have leadership, they're in those leadership, jobs. They don't know how to lead for anything. They don't. I think they
No,
just
no,
whatever they kissed up, and I mean, some
yep,
to some degree they might have worked hard to get to that position, but they
right,
didn't really have the tools to actually earn that job. It's just because they have the degrees or they knew
yep,
somebody, and when you
yep,
see people lead, there's many facets of being a leader, and you know I'm not saying I always wanted to be that. I didn't. I hid, in my own skin for a long time. But the reality of it is when I see people lead, I look at them and I go like, what is it? How are you leading? You don't like you. I know what kind of feelings you have towards certain people. I know the lack of experiences you have dealing with different types of people, or anything that's different or out of the realm of you're out of the box thinking. Like, you don't think it's a great idea. Like, you're not really incorporating or adding people into a situation. You don't know how to incorporate somebody based on a difference. Like, you don't know how to bring them into the fold and let them figure out on their own. And because I had a conversation with an HR woman at the job that I recently lost. And this was before I
Hmm.
lost my job, but like one of the things I was trying to argue with her, because they do hire some people with disabilities, it's
Hmm.
like she wanted to put us in this box and she wanted us to have to do certain things their way. And I'm like, you understand, you're trying to make us live a politically correct life, but there's nothing politically correct about being disabled. There's
Yep.
nothing. People are allowed to say whatever they want about us. They can use innuendo in certain ways to describe us. They can treat us
Yep.
differently, and it's not. It's way more subliminal than I think than any other community. Because yes, you can be racist and sexist and certain things in certain ways
Hmm.
without being so obvious. But for the most part, we can pick up on it. But people with disabilities, we get discriminated on all the time, and no one really gives a shit unless we
And
give a
and it,
shit.
and it's already hard enough as it is, and it's like on top of this, you have people giving you a hard time, like, what the hell, like, what kind of what does this say about people? Like, we're treating the people that need the most. It's like kicking a dog with a broken leg when it's down. It's like, why? Why
Yeah.
why do we why are we worse than animals? Like, why can't we just do the right thing? And I'm guessing if I'd imagine the HR person isn't somebody that had a disability.
No, not at all. I mean, look, don't get me
So
wrong.
so
She's a nice person, but no.
yeah, yeah. But the fact that there's this, like, um disconnect, and that you're being treated a certain way when things are already hard enough as it is, to me, is just really a disgrace. And I think we both know this, but like, if you do apply to a job and you do mention you have a disability, behind closed doors, there's conversations about, we don't want somebody that's like that. And these are the things that go on, but which is why a lot of people, they hide it, right? They don't say that.
Yeah.
Even for myself, like, it's very hard to do it because I have a real fear that if I say I have a bipolar disorder or I have depression, oh, now this person's liable. They're a liability. What if they're depressed on their job? What if they're this? What if they're that? And so, to some degree, it feels like we're forced to hide that. But if you're in a wheelchair, you have a disability that you can't hide. There's literally nothing you can do. And who's going to hold the people accountable if they say, "Oh, sorry, we decided to accept another applicant"? Are we ever going to know the full truth of that decision? No, because they're going to keep it in their head. And so there needs to be better laws that have better, more fair. It has to be more fair, and there need to be things put in place so that people, it's just more fair across the board, right? Because it's not, and you shouldn't have to go through that. People should just, you know, you should have the opportunity to be able to work just like any other person without having to be judged for having a disability. And so I see problems with the system. I
Yeah.
think those need a change, and I think we need leaders to man up or woman up or whatever the case may be, to say we need to help the people that need help, not to shoot them down, and to give them a chance and an opportunity, just like any other person, and not to be judged based on their disability.
Yeah, and there's just so, and forget disability. There's so many people that are struggling and dealing with so much, and it's like some people just they tend to make life so much harder for us, and there's no need for that shit, man. Like I
No.
said, we all prejudge to some degree, sure, but like for the most part, man, I just like I said, I mean, part of even why I lost the job I lost because I got pigeonholed into the whole I'm a little bit abrasive because I tend to stand up and speak up for other people, and I open
Yeah.
my mouth when I feel like I needed to, and what people don't understand is for a long time because of being bullied and picked on and people throwing chairs at me and literally spitting on me and teachers not
God.
allowing me to go to the bathroom, making me sit in it and shit like that made me build up anger and disdain for people. And then, when I see it happening, and so when I got to this job 8 years ago, I was starting to work on who the hell I was, and I was trying to build my own individuality, trying to be my own person. And I realized when I was starting to figure that out, I got there, and because they hire a lot of visually impaired and blind people, it was oh, you are all the same because you have this one thing in common. You're not Timothy, you're not TJ, you are blind person 8 or whatever. And no, it was not
Hmm.
said that way, but we all, you can ask anybody that with the visual impairment or blindness, they could all tell you and, corroborate exactly what I'm saying. And it built up a real frustration, but at the same time, it built up this leadership thing in me, and it made me. I mean, the podcast might not have ever come from anywhere if I didn't go to this job, because if I didn't work there, I didn't figure this out and didn't learn this part of life, I wouldn't have, I don't know if I would have ever turned into the person I am. It's partially, as far as the
Hmm.
leadership part of it, because I always
And,
kind of hid. Go ahead.
mhm. And it makes, just listening to what you said, Tim, it makes me angry when I hear what you've been through. And I can relate because I was severely bullied.
Sure.
And I know the impact of that when it's happening and nobody stands up or like says something. And I talk about this as a speaker because it affected me and it did severely damage my self-esteem, and it's something I still deal with today because, like we talked about, it's that inner child. And you were abrasive at work, but there is a reason for that, and people aren't. They may not know, but they should know because it's important, right? Because we see this manifest in different ways. Um, and one of the things that, like, I would say, like, a good example of that is, like, I look at somebody like Kanye West, and I
Sure.
can see how angry he is, right? He lost his, you know,
His mother.
his mother, but also Kim Kardashian. I think he really cared about his family, and then things went really bad, and that turned into severe anger, where now he is on board and okay with genocide, and he thinks that it's it's okay, and I think it can be really dangerous when people are angry and they don't have a good outlet or valve, and it turns into something really terrible. And I see him as a very angry person, and I think it's really terrible, and I think it's dangerous too, um, because, like we said, anger, it never leads to anything good, and that doesn't mean that it's going to be like, oh, just get over it. That doesn't work either, right? We need to work through these things,
Yeah.
and we need to have a safe space and the tools that we need to get past them. I know because I know what it's like to be angry, to feel betrayed and angry at people, and feel actual hatred. I know what that's like. And I know how terrible it can feel. Like, it feels like physically, it feels like poison, like my body's being poisoned. And that anger is just so intense and out of control, and it doesn't lead to anything good.
No.
And we know it's wrong, but we also need to validate and be real that this shit is happening, and it's real, and it's not easy to control, and that people need support to not be condemned when they're in that state, because that's when really bad things happen, right? So I agree with everything you said. Having the tools, taking mental health seriously, empowering people instead of shutting them down, shooting them down, putting them in a box. Because I've felt all of those things too, and we are not the same people. We have experienced some of the same things, but
Right.
we both understand that, and we both know that, and I think that's so important. And to hold on to that hope, and to, when we do feel that way, when we are challenged, and we have to decide, what am I going to do with this intensity of energy, whether it's negative or positive. Oftentimes it's negative. We need to channel that. We have to choose to channel that, to make the better decision, to take the high road, that we're going to siphon this energy, whether it's negative or positive, into something good to help other people, rather than using it as something bad.
Sure. Yeah, and when our trauma is like contingent, or our uncontrollable anger and is contingent on all the trauma we've been through. A lot of times, who ends up paying for that is, and when you don't have an outlet, and you don't have anyone to confide in, you take it out on other innocent people, or of
Yeah.
course yourself. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of times where it's just I've been, I've had my darkest days where, I tried to kill myself, but, because I hated life. I hated myself. I hated everything.
Yep.
I finally gave up on the fact that I was, for a couple years, I was only living for my mother and my grandmother because I didn't want them to
Yeah.
find me dead. I only wanted to live for
Right.
them because I didn't give a shit about myself other than maybe my
Yep.
cat. I didn't give a shit about life. I didn't care about it anymore because every person, like, I didn't have really any. My best friends had died. I didn't really have many friends. Everyone kind of went their own way. Um, and part of that was my fault because I didn't really, acquiesce them in certain things. I didn't really kind of bring them into the fold. We were just kind of, cordial with each other, and I didn't really push for a bigger relationship. But because they didn't push, because I was always getting pushed out, and everyone would kind of hurt me. It was hard for me to just say, "Hey guys, be my friend." And how I used to
Yeah.
act to try to make people my friend, I would try to be anything but myself. If someone were to say, "Hey man, that new Eminem album sucks," meanwhile it's
Yep.
on my iPod. It's just I told them it sucked because I wanted them to be my friend. Because I
Yep.
didn't want them to hit me, or didn't want them to molest me, or didn't want them to, make fun of me.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, and so, like I said, you build up all that kind of shit. And sometimes, this is something I've been talking about lately, is just
Hmm.
sometimes you just keep storing this shit away in your mental closet. And then,
Hmm.
like one day I was in therapy and I just started talking about my dad, and the dad shit fell out all over the floor because I just went on a tirade.
Yep.
And, and just little by little, you try to jam pack that closet to one day you just see, like, why is that door, like, what the fuck's wrong with it? It's kind of open. And then you go near it and
Hmm.
everything
Hmm.
just falls all over you. And now you're just
Yep.
consumed by your own bullshit and your own life.
Yep.
And
Yep.
yeah, a lot of it may not be your fault. Some of it may, and again, depending on what your circumstances are and, whatever. But for someone like me, a lot of my shit I did not cause, and I'm not playing victim, but that's just the case.
Yeah.
And some stuff I did play a part in, and it's everywhere. And I happen to put the pieces together. Like one of the things you talked about with your mother or with your
Yep.
family and stuff, like, I was sort of close with my dad for a while, and then when I was a kid, and then just things fell apart. And more recently, I'm just trying to build back some of the relationships, even if it's never going to be father and son, or in this
Hmm.
brother and sister, or whatever. I'm trying to make amends because I don't want to die, or I don't want to see them die, especially my dad, because my dad is an older person and he's got a lot of
Hmm.
health
Hmm.
issues. I want to
Yep.
try to have a relationship the best I can. With my sister, a lot of things went wrong that
Hmm.
were out of both of our control, and it's sad to see that. And I don't want my sister to feel like she doesn't have a brother.
Right.
And will we ever be brother and sister? I don't know. I plan on trying to have her on the podcast. We can have a conversation. I had my dad on. I've had issues with certain people, and I'm just been trying to check off a list of people I'm making amends with. I don't care about a lot of ex-girlfriends and things, stuff that just, it is what it is,
Yeah.
just bitter, petty shit. But overall, just the
Hmm.
people that really make up, or made a real impact in my life one way or another, and people that meant something to me at one point in time. I want to try to build that because I don't want that shit, like, regardless. Like, and there's a lot of
Yeah.
people, like, I feel your pain when it comes to, the lack of support I get from some of my
Yeah.
endeavors. But
Hmm.
there's certain qualities, certain things about them I know. Like, I love my grandmother. I know my grandma's, for the most part, I would say she's an 80% good person, but she has some racial tendencies. She has some things that are just based on
Sure.
her generation that I don't
Hmm.
agree with. Not just the racial stuff, just certain things. Like, she believes, she was really hard on me about losing this job because she made it like, oh, how dare you? Like, how are you going to find another one? Because she doesn't have as much faith
Mm.
in my being able to access another job because of my visual impairment, and the fact that she grew up basically, when you have a job, you stay at that job forever. And I knew that was
Yeah.
not going into that place. I just needed some place to land, to get my feet wet and try to mature and figure out what it was like to be a big boy again. Because I
Hmm.
was going through immense trauma and anxiety and depression and
Yep.
suicidal thoughts and so on. And a lot of people didn't take that serious. When I was going to the hospital for panic attacks, my heart is on fire, and a lot of people just looked at me like I'm crazy. And
Yep.
it left me feeling so empty and alone, and that was where it all, like, I mean, it was my bottom. And I'm not a
Yeah.
person that
Yeah.
likes a lot of attention. I don't want to go to the hospital and try to get people to like take care of
No.
me. And just to clarify or add on a little bit, my mom is a nurse and she's a nurse in the ER
Mm,
at this particular hospital. So I pretty
okay.
much know all the nurses because they all went to school with her. They all graduated with her. So it's not
Hmm.
even that. I
Hmm.
got people working on me and checking on me over this shit, and like I'm panic. My anxiety's on fire. Like if I slept with a girl, I think I have an STD. So now I have to go in and have a doctor look at me, take my clothes off
Mm,
because it's just anything to will calm down the fucking fire that is burning inside of me.
yeah.
And so it's like that's just like that's going back to the beginning of what I said. Is just you have sometimes if you don't deal with this shit, you have so much of this. It gets out of control. I mean, it's literally like a literal fire that's going on in the world now. Like it gets so out of control. If you don't find ways to start putting it out, you're
Hmm.
going
Hmm.
to hurt yourself or you're going to hurt someone else that didn't deserve it.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And I call that throwing it in the. I throw it in the back of my head, I put it in a box and I put it away. But it doesn't go away. It can. It Stuff like that can, like you said, shit goes all over the floor and it just blows over. Um, One thing I'll say, which has been really problematic for me, I also have issues with my immediate family. My dad, absolute scumbag, terrible person. I wish that wasn't the case, but
Right.
he was just a really, really, really terrible person. Phony, no friends, no respect for that guy. And the worst part about it is he was actually really smart and educated, but he didn't use it for good.
Yeah.
So he's not a role model for me. Nobody likes him. It's just, and being associated, like having to think of him as my dad, I'm like, I wish I had a better dad. But like you said too, it's like we gotta try and surround ourselves with the right people. And this shit doesn't go away. It is getting worse, and it is fucking hard. And we need. I think it takes a lot of courage, and I think it's very courageous of you to be able to talk about these things, Tim. And it's really inspiring to me to hear all the shit that you've been going through, and people not being there for you, and you just have to deal with it on your own. And I've dealt with those things too, and I'm not proud to talk about them. And I also know what it's like to feel labeled as crazy because I have a bipolar disorder. And people don't, the thing is, people don't understand it. And if you've never had it, you just wouldn't get it. So people don't get us. So we have to live with it on our own. And I don't have friends to talk to because now I'm a Debbie Downer and they don't want to talk to me. Nobody wants to be around me. So now I feel even more isolated. And the only person I have to talk to oftentimes is somebody on the suicide hotline. And that's no fun.
I've
It
been
sucks
there.
that, yeah. So we can be honest about that. But as a society, it's like a lot of people, they just feel so shamed and like there's something so wrong with them that they choose to rather not live at all. But we all have we're here for a reason because we are supposed to be here and we do have something to contribute to the world and we do want to make it easier for the next generation so that they don't have to go through the shit that we went through. And I just think that it's really, really awesome how you're just like so open and honest about the fact of your relationships with your family and like your grandmother's mostly good but she's not perfect, and she's got her own things, and it's like none of us are perfect. We have imperfections. Even within my closest friends, there are things I don't like about them, but sometimes we do have to put our differences aside and just accept that, hey, that's a part of them and that's okay. And maybe it wasn't their fault. We try to have more compassion, try to have more empathy. That their parents split when they were younger, or they were beaten, or whatever the shit is that they had to go through that makes them who the person they are today, and to try to not shame them for that and put them down for that. That happened to me with one of my best friends recently, and I found out through somebody that saw them when they were very young, like getting beaten in public, that when they didn't deserve it at all. He was just a kid, like a few years old, and his dad beat the shit out of him. And he's somebody that made fun of me when I was on medication. Ironically, now he's taking he's on meds, but like that was really hurtful because the meds feel I need them. I know I need them, but I hate the fact that it feels like a crutch and that it's something that I need to manage my mania and depression and bipolar disorder. But I do need them, and it sucks because it has side effects. Like I'm constantly hungry. I'm having trouble losing weight. There are things I don't like about him, but I do need it, and it does. I am better off with it. And he was just so terrible to me. He would really embarrass me in front of other friends, but uh, I didn't know that he was beaten so badly. And when I heard that, and this is the tough thing too, Tim, right? Because it doesn't give him a license to be able to bully me, but in the same token, he was bullied like in a terrible, terrible way, and that has affected him as a person. And yes, we're adults now, but like I try to have a little more compassion and empathy. But I like obviously, and what I think it comes down to is really just setting the boundary. Like what you're saying is not okay. You can't talk about that anymore. You need to stop. If it's not okay, then maybe we need to not be friends right now, or whatever the case may be. I have to set the boundary, and I don't have a lot of friends. I only have a few good friends, and I'm blessed to have the few good friends that I do have. But even with them, I can't talk with them about the shit that we're talking about. It's just too much. They can't handle it, or it's just not. They just can't. They don't want to go there because it's a downer for them. They don't want to hear about my depression. They don't want to hear about my bipolar disorder. So I have to deal with that on my own, and it's hard and it sucks really bad.
Yeah,
But
no,
you
I
know,
totally understand.
yeah, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, well, you have a friend for life. If you ever need someone to talk to, please just text me anytime.
I appreciate that, Tim. It means more to me than you know.
Yeah,
And I know that whoever's listening too, we go through this too, and that it is okay to feel these things. And I heard there's I don't the UFC Ultimate Fighter champion.
yeah, the actual
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So there was a guy, I forget what his name was, but he won. And the thing that he said was so awesome, and I respect the shit out of this guy. He said, we have a real issue in our society. There's a stigmatism that guys cannot show any signs of sadness at all. And he said, I would rather have my friend cry to cry on my shoulder than to cry on somebody else's shoulder at his funeral. And I thought I respected him so much for saying that, because it is an issue. And the reason we lose so many people is because they feel they have nowhere to go to or nobody to talk to. And it is a huge issue. And there is this stigmatism and expectation in society, and people would choose to rather not live. And that's a shame. So I hope that it's, also what we talk about gives inspiration to other people to reach out if they're struggling or really sad or just need somebody to talk to. And there's nothing wrong with that. And it's not a weakness. It's actually a huge strength of courage.
Yeah,
So,
I think it was
yeah.
that guy Patty. I think his name is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that sounds right. Yeah.
he's got. What is
Yeah,
he?
yeah.
I forget what he is. He's Irish or something. He's got
He
a
looked like,
crazy accent.
he looked, yeah, he looked, I believe he's Irish. I'm not 100% sure, but he looked Irish to me.
Yeah, he
Um,
talked about mental health. He's
yeah, I
interesting guy.
respect. And the thing was too is that everybody applauded. He got everybody applauded when he said that, and like that is not what you expect to hear from a champion. Talk about like people that are hurting. It's usually how great they are, their legacy, all this shit, and I hate that. Like what I am after and what I want is there to be more true champions, right? Because the difference between a winner and a true champion is somebody that not only brings out the best in themselves, but also brings out the best in others. That is what we need. Somebody who toots their own horn, like it's like good for you, you won, but like what are you doing? What difference are you actually making?
Yeah.
Like, who cares? If you're helping other people, then it's like, wow, that's what a good leader should be. And why do we not have more people like that?
Well, and we give titles to people that will say they're a champion, they're a warrior, they're a fighter, they're all these things, but a
Yeah.
lot of the strongest people you'll ever meet are people who have been through trauma. Some of the realest
Yes.
people you ever meet are people who've just been through shit. They don't have any belts. They don't have any achievements. Like I'm trying to find ways to get into the mental health field, and they're like, "Well, you don't have any certificates, you don't have any degrees." And it's like, motherfucker,
Yep.
I have more degrees in mental health than you'll ever have because I live this
Yeah.
shit.
You live
Like,
it. Yep. You
like
live
I don't need to go to school. I don't need to get a master's in that shit because I have it. Like the scars say it. Like and I'm not trying to be corny or like some kind of poetic movie.
No, you're not.
Injustice, and I'm gonna. It's just the reality is like I have been through the shit. So, and I'm not asking you to feel bad for me. I'm not asking you to cry. I'm just saying
No.
don't just completely push me aside and neglect what I'm saying, because I'm telling you,
Yeah.
I would know how to deal with people with mental health, or people dealing with addiction. Even though I don't know addiction, but I know a lot of people have been through it. And a
Yeah.
lot of this is so parallel. Homelessness. I never thought I'd ever even talk about half the shit I'm talking about,
Hmm.
because I didn't
Hmm.
have any intentions to. But then I realized it was all connected, and I realized like homeless people are treated like people with disabilities, and I realized that people
Yep.
with
Yep.
addiction are just pushed to the side because, oh
Yep.
well, they're just drunks or they're just druggies. It's not
Yep.
the
Our
case,
fault.
man. Life can, like, I could have, if I wasn't such a pussy of a kid, and I didn't, if I wasn't afraid of everything because so many people did so many awful things to me, which weirdly enough benefited me in the way that I didn't become an addict, because
Right.
I saw my dad drink, pretty heavily at one point and became really
Hmm.
obnoxious. But at the same
Yeah.
time, because I was so afraid, I said no to everything. But I could have
Hmm.
gone the other way. I had a person tell me in school, like, I don't fuck with him because he might be the next white kid that's going to shoot up the school. And though it was an evil thing to say, and I've brought it up on here many times, it's because she was right. And that's why I don't write any of these people off. And I'm not saying I condone any of this shit, but the reality is,
Yeah.
like, when you have anger, you need somewhere to put it. And
Yep.
if people are either the cause and the source of your anger, you just want to make them hurt just like you. Because there was a period of time, and I've said this on here before as well, it's just talking to you as a newer person, like,
Yeah.
you know, there was a period of time where I saw people who were happy. I saw a pretty girl that I said, nope, I I hate myself. I want to rape her because, and again, I said it internally. I want to rape her
Hmm.
because she'll never date me. She'll never have sex with me. She won't like me.
Hmm.
I'm hurting so bad. Or I see that old person, I just want to hit them, or I want to do this,
Yeah.
or even things to myself. I just want to step out in front of that car and hope it hits me, type of shit.
Hmm. Hmm.
I was in such agony mentally,
Yeah.
and to some degree physically, and with some chronic pain and things. I
Hmm.
wanted to
Hmm.
die so bad, and I wanted to take anyone with me like a suicide bomber. That it's just,
Yeah.
and that's the thing. But deep down, I'm a mushy, like, romantic, loving person who wants good for everybody. But I've turned into the complete opposite, and that
Hmm.
shit fuels and it continues to just, it bursts up in flames and it just catches it on fire, and it goes everywhere. And like I said, you don't address these issues and shit, it will continue. And again, I mean, when,
And
the biggest compliment anyone can give me is something you said earlier about being so real, because I had to develop this, but I have to be real because I see so much ungenuine just bullshit on the social media, and I see things.
yes.
I saw a girl who has like 77,000 followers on TikTok, and she just wears these shirts, but it's like an individual
It's
thing
so
for each
it's
titty. Like, it's
so
just
stupid.
they just hang there. And look, I'm sure they look nice outside the shirt, and she's a very beautiful girl. I'm sure
Yeah.
she probably has something else to offer the world. But the reality is, like, people are watching this shit. Like, what is wrong with you people? Like, I'm not saying you have to watch all mental health content or just watch cats, play with each other or whatever. But I'm just
Yeah.
saying, like, my God, like, this is what people are going to. This is the distractions we have when, again, metaphorically and literally, the world is on fire. So can we figure out
Hmm.
how to put this shit out so we can stop bullshitting, and we can get back to regular lives? Like, we're already panicking about the next COVID scare. And it's like,
Yep.
no, man, like, I just want to live my life. Life has been challenging enough. I'm trying to get to a place where my feet are on the ground and I can
Hmm.
stand tall and I can just smile and look forward to the next day. But I don't do that all the time. And it's sad. And I'm trying to get there. I'm working on myself every day. Even when I get to a place where I feel like maybe I am more satisfied with who I am and I do love life more, I still want to
Hmm.
work on myself, because that's just, I want to get to close to perfect as possible, knowing that I'll never ever come close.
Yeah, and I spoke with about that self-actualization. That's something that we try to reach when we reach that point where we have reached full self-fulfillment on the at the highest level possible of what we can achieve in our own life. And to your point, the only person we should try to be better than is a person we were yesterday. And it is fucking hard enough as it is. And people don't understand. And that's infuriating because when something bad happens, that person is always blamed. Oh, this person had this issue. This is their own fault. They never talk about why it happened in the first place. And that is very frustrating to me. Um, it's an issue. It's like a leaking pipe, and you're trying to, you're like, oh yeah, that's the pipe's fault. That's why it flooded.
Yeah.
But you don't do anything. You don't do anything to fix the pipe. You just look at it and you say, oh yeah, that's just a bad pipe. But you don't put any tape over it. You don't try to fix it. Oh, that's just a bad pipe. It's like it's just, it doesn't make any sense. And it is a crisis, and it does feel like the world's on fire. And I think it's just going to take time before more bad shit happens, before we have leaders that emerge that actually want to do things to get people the help that they really need. And it's a shame, and it's a disgrace.
Yeah.
But it's the reality of things, and this is the shit that nobody talks about. And I just admire, Tim, how open and honest, brutally honest you are about this stuff, and I just relate so much to you. And these are the things that, again, people don't have to feel sorry or bad. No, we don't want that. I think that's another stereotype, that people, they assume that we want attention, and that's the furthest thing from what we want. We just want to have decent lives that are meaningful and be on our merry way. I don't care for people to know about this, but I speak out about it because I know I'm not going to be the last person. And what I went through is fucking hell, and it sucked. But people don't know that. They just see me from the outside. They look at you from the outside. They don't know that. They can't see the shit, that the absolute horrible trauma that we've had to endure. You can't show that, but that's what should be shown. Like, there should be shows about this stuff, because people need to recognize, because they don't. And I've been around people. I've worked at places where people have been like, "Oh, yeah, that you just need to work harder, and your depression will go away." It's infuriating. People, they don't understand this shit. And you're right. And then society is like, "Oh, you don't know this enough. You don't have this. You're not smart enough. You can't do this." That's how I felt when I wrote my books. Oh, you don't have this credential. You don't have that. It's like, no, you're right. I don't. I have way more experience, because I had lived through this shit. You don't get to tell me. Don't put me in my place. You don't get to speak as God. I'll make my own way. I'll make my own path. If there's no door, I'm going to build it. Believe that. And you've done that. You have an awesome podcast, and that's just, one thing. But I think what you talk about, how honest and real you are, Tim, is just, I just have so much freaking respect for you, man.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Seriously, I really mean that, more so than any podcast I've spoken on. You're just so damn brutally honest, and you say this shit that people know but don't want to hear, and they don't want to talk about it because it makes them uncomfortable. But if they could know even just a fraction of what we've experienced, maybe they would be more understanding.
Yeah.
Maybe they would look at people in a different way, and not just judge them as somebody that has a disability, or there's something wrong with this person, or maybe their train of thought, we can influence them to be more understanding and more compassionate, because deep down that is that compassionate person within us. There's that compassionate soul. And yes, it's not always that way. We have all this anger, and it's justified, and we have every right to feel that way because of the bad shit that's happened. But we both know, and we both want to be, and we strive to be that happier and better person that just wants to make the world a better place for ourselves and others. That's really where it's at.
Yeah. I want to say one comment to what you said, and then we'll kind of get to the point where where you're at today, and we could wrap it up, because you and I will talk forever, and we can outside of this, and we can even do another one down the road. But
Absolutely,
you and I will go on forever, and we'll be at an 8-hour podcast. So, but one comment, just kind of something you said, is I don't know if people just think because I'm single, do I want a girlfriend that's just like, baby, oh my God, you can't see here, let me do everything for you. It's like, no, I just want someone to accept me for who the hell I am. I want her to understand and acknowledge that obviously I have this problem, but don't actually make it about, I don't want my whole relationship to be defined by that. I don't want to be insignificant in any way because I lack that. Because what I lack in that, I will pick up in many other areas. And so yeah. But so why don't we get into kind of where you're at today, and your goals, and what you're trying to achieve, and what you have achieved.
Yeah, so I've come a really long way. Um, it's interesting. You just talked about relationships being accepted for who you are. It's hard, right? Because we have to open ourselves up and be vulnerable,
Yeah.
and we have to be careful who we share our stories and pains with, because not every person is going to be the right person. And I've my thinking on this has changed. At one point, I was very much of the opinion, oh yeah, if you're just open and vulnerable, people will just respect you, and that's not the case. We have to be careful with who we share our stories and pains with, because if you go to somebody and want them to be your doctor, like, you have to understand not everybody's gonna be prepared or want to do that, and that they may feel like it's disingenuous, or like a burden placed upon them that they didn't ask for or want. So it's important to be careful about that. And I've made that mistake, which is why I say that. And I recently, gave in my all for somebody I had really strong feelings towards, and I ended up getting really rejected and hurt badly. Um, and as bad as that sucked, for everything that I put in some way it made me stronger. We talked before about adversity and how the shit that we've gone through, yes, it sucks, and yes, it hurts, and yes, it affects us negatively, but it also builds up this callus. And that callus has become more prominent in my life more recently. I've I've realized how much strength I have that I didn't know that I had, right? How resilient I can be. I didn't realize this until I had been so deeply hurt. And so, as bad as the things that have happened are, there's a quote which is that every time I thought I was being rejected from something good, I was actually being redirected to something better. And I feel like there's some truth to that in my situation. And I've been pushing myself really fucking hard. I have done things that have really terrified me because I've been so afraid of failing, like speaking in public. I've
Sure.
had to let go. I've had to let go of myself. That's been a very painful thing for me, because you have to put yourself out there. I have to publicly be okay with talking about having bipolar disorder, which I know most people will look at this time and age and say, "Oh, this guy's crazy," and that sucks and it hurts. But I'm okay with it, and I've stopped caring. And not in the sense that I don't care what other people think. I do, but I'm okay with it, and I've let go of what trying to craft this image of who I am as a person. I am who I am, and you're like that too, because I can just tell just by talking to you, Tim, how real you are. Like, you're raw, and I'm trying to get to that place too, and I've made some really big strides, and that's been necessary for me to do that as a speaker that speaks on mental health. Um, I have been working for since 2020 of March 2020 on publishing books. I have 31 titles. I can look at that. I'm really proud of that. I'm in a position where I do sales right now. Um, I have that. I've got a parenting newsletter called All Star Parent. And then I won a few championships in Axelrod. That was the first time in my life that I came in first place, and it was so powerful and empowering to me. It literally changed my life, and I want to tell you why that's important. It's important not because I wanted to toot my own horn. Like, it was nice for me, because it felt like all the bullying in the past. It felt like a huge weight taken off my shoulders. But what I realized more importantly is that I have a higher purpose. That gave me the courage and the strength to realize, wow, if I can be a champion, I can make other people that have felt like losers or as shitty as I've felt, I can make them champions. I can help them find what it is that makes their heart beat and what their purpose is. Because I didn't know that I was supposed to be a speaker. That took me the longest time to figure that out. And I rejected that, and that's been a very painful journey for me. And so I found my purpose, and that was huge for me. Uh, I've grown so much from that, and it's changed my thinking. I want to figure out how I can make more people champions, because it changed my life, and I know if I change my life, it could change other people's life. And I'm not saying that that means you have to win a trophy or come in first place. Like that's not practical. Not every person is going to win a first place championship trophy competing against other people. It could be something like you discovered something you're good at that makes you feel like a champion. I always count your victories, even if they're minor. If we can't ever appreciate our victories, then when we do have big ones, we'll never be able to allow ourselves to celebrate and use that motivation as momentum to continue propelling us forward towards our goals and aspirations.
For sure, yeah, absolutely. No, that's a huge thing. I mean, that's something I've talked about. A lot of people with disabilities I have on. We talk about, appreciating because our ceiling is so low in society that it's like, okay, if you graduated high school, it's like, oh my god, or hey,
Yeah.
you have your own place. What? But like once you have your own place, like, oh, you have an apartment. Well, you won't be able to get a house, right? So it's like,
Yeah.
and so you tend to, but that psychologically gets in your own way because now you're going, well, yeah, I probably couldn't get a house, or oh, I probably couldn't get that. But you're not even appreciating the fact that you have your own apartment. You're not appreciating that you do have a
Yeah.
job. You're not appreciating because when you brag about having a job to people, somebody with full sight or an able-bodied person, they're going to go, well, yeah, my whole family has jobs, my whole family has houses, and my whole family,
Mm-hmm.
and so it doesn't seem like it seems like such like a minuscule thing to bring up to another person because
Yeah.
they have it. But then you have to look at it from the other angle and realize how many barriers you had to run through and how many hurdles you had to jump over, and how hard it took you to even get to here physically, mentally, emotionally. And that's the real, like, the victory. So then, like, when there's days you get up and it's like, man, like, because yesterday I was so mentally out of it and depressed, I sat in my own filth and didn't do a damn thing. Today I did the dishes. That's a win because you didn't do that yesterday. I took the trash out, or I did this, I did that, and they become wins. And you have to look at it like that because there are times where you just you just check out and you're not
Oh yeah,
prepared to
mentally. Yep.
deal with this shit. Yeah, you don't want to do
Yep.
any of this stuff. Forget, like, what do you mean? I'm gonna change my clothes. I'm gonna shower. I'm gonna do no. Why? I don't want to. I hate myself. Why would I
Yep.
better myself? Why would I shower? Why?
Exactly.
Why would I brush my
You just
teeth?
like yeah, yeah, no, and just people that have never had depression or a medical condition, they don't understand it, and they come off as very ignorant, which it is. I mean, if you've never been hospitalized before for a mental health crisis, it's it's hard to relate to people. Like we can relate, but like to most people, they just wouldn't get it. They would just to them it's a label. It's like, oh, that person has X, Y, or Z. Like, no, we're fucking just like you, but we do have things that make it challenging for us to do or affect our ways of thinking, behaving, acting. It is an influence and it does affect us. But it's like we're just like any other person, right? But
Yeah.
so it's just it's hard. But um, the biggest thing I would say, Tim, and I can just tell from speaking with you how much strength you have from all the shit that you've been through, and you're still going, even though you've been at the place to where, and I've been there where you just don't want to be around anymore, and you could care less. But we know deep down inside we have a purpose. We are supposed to be here. We were put on this planet for a reason to make a difference. Even if it's one person that listens to this podcast and we help them in some way, shape, or form,
Yeah.
we did something good in this world, and that is worth, and that makes it all worthwhile.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's what I try to hold on to, and to just be a better person than the person I was yesterday, and to just keep fighting, man,
That's all I
just
know how to
push,
do. It's one of the few things I'm
right?
good at. Is just
we're
fighting.
fighters, right? To
Yeah.
go through this, like in our head, like nobody will ever be able to have to perceive how painful that is, but we are real fighters, and that is something to be proud about.
Yeah, I'm starting to realize that more and more. Just because there's a lot of people that have been, there's a few people here and there have been coming out of the woodworks here, just on TikTok and Instagram, and just saying, "Hey, man, I've been
Mhm.
following you for years. Like, keep doing what you're doing," and then they become guests
That's
on the
awesome,
podcast or become friends, and
amazing.
that's, again, like you were saying earlier. Sometimes I wish I didn't need that kind of satisfaction, that gratification of
Hmm.
someone praising me, but it
Yeah,
feels so good because when you're in darkness for so fucking long, you need anything. Like you just need that hand to just grab you and
Oh
pull
yeah,
you to hell back up because you're like, man, because I early on in this podcast, I was like episode 12 because no one was really listening. I was like, I give up. And then someone texted me and said, hey man, you got me through the day because you have the same condition I have. And thank you. And it's like, all
amazing.
right, I'm coming back. Shit. Okay.
Yep,
It's
man,
like,
that's it, man. You're a game changer. That's amazing.
yeah, just like a little
Yeah,
defibrillator.
it's
Just yeah.
yeah, no, it's that's awesome, man. Just so much respect for what you're doing.
Yeah, I know. I appreciate it. So what are you, before we like wrap up here, what are you doing today? Obviously promote whatever you need to promote.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really on social media. That it's just all garbage to me. And
I hear you.
like you said, girls in shirts, which I don't give a shit about.
Yeah. If I didn't have a podcast, I wouldn't be on social media. I promise you.
Oh, I hear you. I hear you, man. I would say like I'm a speaker. I connect with people. I like talking to people. I like meeting new people. If we can help each other in some way, I'm a published author. If you want to check my books out, I run right under the pen name Frank Dixon. I'm a speaker. I speak on mental health.
Do you have a website?
Yeah, I do. So the speaker website is just my name, www.aviwolfson.com. My parenting books are Frank Dixon, Frank Dixon. They'll pop up right away for any parents that might be listening. And I worked for, I'll leave that part out. In a parenting newsletter, All Star Parent. And yeah, that's pretty much it. If you type my name in on LinkedIn, I connect with people there. That's where I like to connect. And that makes me happy, just like you connecting with people with your podcast. Let's take that win, man. If it makes you feel good, then it's awesome to me. I think it's a good thing. So it's just my name, AVI Wolfson, WOLFSON. If you check me out, I'm on LinkedIn. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Did you say where they can get your books?
Yeah. Oh yeah. So if you go into Amazon and just type in Frank Dixon, FRANK, last name Dixon, DIXON. That's my pen name I write under.
Your
And
alternate
the reason
ego?
I do that, no, exactly. So yeah, growing up, just in a nutshell, two reasons. One, I want to separate my family and my personal life.
Sure.
For that reason, and marketing purposes, you can't misspell Frank. My real name is like, it gets botched all the time.
Right.
I get Harvey, AV, Ivy. It gets butchered really bad. So those are
Gotcha.
the reasons, and that's that.
Yeah, no, I got you. But wow, I just wanted to make sure you got yourself. I appreciate you for coming on. This was awesome.
No, it's one of the better conversations I've had, Tim. Just so
Yeah.
raw, so real, and what people need to hear and understand. And the fact that you're willing to go there, and you keep fighting and you keep going, with everything you're up against, to me is a huge inspiration. And please, seriously, keep in touch. I'm happy to chat anytime.
Same here.
Awesome.
Yeah, no, please do. Yeah, I appreciate all the nice words. Like I said, I think the brilliance behind a lot of this is like, this is just two people talking. I told them that like, this is just unfiltered. We're just going to talk. I don't know where it's going. It's just going to go somewhere.
Yeah.
And it did. Like this is the first time we've ever heard each other's voices. We texted back and forth, but we've never really fully conversated. And I know that may trigger some people in 2023 because most people don't like to talk on the phone. But for old school people, we actually enjoy meeting in person. We enjoy talking on the phone and actually getting the real context and not using emojis and all this other bullshit. So again, this was pieced together as far as this particular interview. Like we just, minus a couple of text messages, we just met and we're now friends and we were supporting each other and so on. And this, like, none of this was scripted or written down. Like, that's why I like it. I don't give a shit about all of this stuff. I know people focus on intro music and I do it. I have an intro song. I'll put it in the beginning, but at the end of the day, like, people are so focused on editing and all that. And a lot of times when you edit, you take out some of the stuff that could probably have helped somebody because you took out certain steps to that journey. And I don't know about you, but I've been on some podcasts, other people's shows where they're like, hey, tell your whole story in 15 minutes. It's like, well, good luck because I'm taking out most of it.
Exactly. These make for the best conversation when we're just shooting the shit and we're just talking. this conversation was awesome. I'm happy to have a new friend and to just be able to be real with and have a real conversation. And I think that there's a real sense of authenticity and genuineness when you can talk to somebody where we've been through similar things and we can relate to each other. And those conversations, to me, are the best conversations.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I appreciate you, buddy, for real. Thank you for making the time, and I'll let you know when it comes out. It'll be a little while, but yeah, like I said, we're friends, and so we'll talk
Absolutely.
more outside of this. But I'm glad we got it done. If there's anything you need
Likewise.
from me in the future, just holler.
Absolutely goes both ways. Thank you, Tim.
All right, buddy. See you, man.
All right. All right. See ya.
Yeah. All right, everybody. I don't know why I worry every time I go to hit that end call button. I always feel like the podcast is going to end, and I know I'm just tapping my phone. Anyway, that's just me psychologically picking at myself. But John, I will say one of the things that I give myself the most credit for doing this, and I know it's gonna be like, oh my god, you're rolling your eyes because like, oh god, he's gonna say something nice about himself. But you don't understand. It's hard for me to do that. I think one of my biggest challenges, and yes, that is thunder. Like I said, this mic picks up so much, so it's really hard to kind of block out. Like when someone like earlier was playing music in their car, it's like, oh fuck, because it just picks up a lot of sound from long distance. Anywho, fuck, what was I saying? Shit, what the hell was I? All right, so what would I give myself the most credit for is you don't know how hard I struggle through my brain fog. Like it's like my this is like a new thought that just popped in my head. It's like a bank account that's frozen. Like my vocabulary is like frozen. And I'm trying to like pick at the shit. I'm trying to access some of my words that I fully know. But because the brain fog is in the way, it's making it very hard. So I'm trying to tiptoe around it. I'm trying not to say the same word over and over. I'm not trying not to say or whatever. I'm trying not to have verbal crutches, but sometimes I just have to do what I got to do to get through it. And I did a pretty decent job. There's this episode, but there's some episodes that I felt like I was atrocious. Now, maybe that's just because I'm super insecure about that, but I don't know. Anyway, I just wanted to bring that up. That's something that I fight, and you don't understand how. I mean, I'm sure some of you do. It's so agonizing. But yes. But I love y'all for real. I think I'm going to go live for the first time tonight. Of course, this episode's coming out much later, so it doesn't matter. But I did finally get over 1,000 followers on TikTok, so I can go live now. Just going to try to have a little fun, maybe just talk about some things. But yeah, I hope you all are doing well. If you want to follow me on TikTok, Instagram, they're both at My Blurred Opinion. I did change my Instagram back so that they're all the same. And my Facebook is just facebook.com/tjwest.96. I don't know why it's 96. Just I'm sure you all have seen your own and it's got a random number behind it, but that's what it is. I'm sure I could change it, but I don't really care to. I'm lazy. I think my LinkedIn is, which I don't really put much time into, so I'm not gonna lie. Don't bother going there. I mean, if you want to talk to me there, go ahead. I'll talk to you. But Instagram and TikTok is where I'm at. My blurred opinion. So, if you know the name of the podcast, because I know some people tend to say My Blurred Vision, which I jokingly say I have that too. But yeah. Anywho, I'll see you guys next week. I appreciate you all for being here in this journey with me. You guys are wonderful. I know you're out there and you're supporting. I hear you. And just some once in a while, reach out, comment, like, subscribe, share with somebody. Find me on these platforms. Say hello. I will absolutely talk to you. I am not, overly big-headed and conceited that I would never respond to. I'm always out here for people who need a friend. So that's why I try at the end to always make sure these people know that I'm here for them as a friendship. And you can talk to all of them. I try to talk to every one of them. I mean, for the ones that I know that want, to acquiesce me in that said friendship. So, so yes, I will see y'all next week. Hope you have a good one yourself. And yeah, take care, guys.